Plaintiff Stephen Berrios and his girlfriend Whitney Dillon say the defendant was their roommate. And 2 weeks after he moved in, things got weird. Whitney claims the defendant only wanted to deal with Stephen. And one night he wandered into their room while they were sleeping. They're suing him today for rent and a cleaning fee. Defendant Jimmy Perkins says while living with the plaintiffs, things became uncomfortable after Stephen asked him to leave so they could have a threesome with Whitney's friend. Jimmy's countersuing for personal property.
All rise. This court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Greg Mathis presiding. You may now be seated.
Start with you.
So in February of 2019, we were looking for a roommate. I found Jimmy, and we took a chance with him. He seemed like a nice guy. Things got weird really fast. But after 2 weeks of living together, there was an incident where Jimmy walked in on us in the middle of the night while we were sleeping. Stephen woke up and saw him and confronted him.
What was he doing?
Hovering over the side of the bed on my side.
Okay.
So we confronted him. Jimmy acted like nothing ever happened. Things started to get
What do you
weird.
mean he act like it never happened? When you said, "What are you doing here?" what did he say?
Oh, I'll chime in on that. So I asked him multiple times, Jimmy, what are you doing?
Hey.
Never got a response.
He just stood there over.
Yep, second time, yes sir. Second time, I asked him, voice kind of got a little bit louder. Still got no response. Third time, he finally snapped out of it. Either he was sleepwalking.
Oh, okay.
Or, but it's just so funny that the night before, we kind of had a conversation regarding if he was a sleepwalker, any of this, and then
All
that
right,
night
then he
of.
ultimately does. Okay, at least that's what it might have been, rather than something more weird or dangerous.
Well,
all right, so go ahead. What was it like, him as a tenant?
So things were weird. I don't know if Jimmy was sexist or what it was about, but I felt like whenever I tried to talk to him, it was very rude, confrontational. Like the last thing he wanted to do was talk to me. But he was always asking me, how's Stephen? Where's Stephen at? Wanted to be best friends with Stephen. We wanted to keep things civil because it was a
When you all signed the lease, both of you were present?
yes,
Correct.
sir.
And both had discussed with him the terms of the lease?
Correct.
Go ahead.
I have a copy of that if you'd like to see it.
Let's see it, please.
It has all our signatures as well.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure if there was alcoholism or a drug problem, but Jimmy seemed to be drinking a lot, and when he did, it seemed like he couldn't really function normally. I outlined in the contract were simple rules like locking the door at night, quiet hours after 9 p.m. Jimmy liked to blast his music late at night, and I asked him, hey, can you turn your music down, please? And he always thought I was trying to control him by telling him what to do, but I was just trying to meet him halfway with simple common sense rules.
Okay, let me hear from you. Give me some background on the tenancy.
When I was about 15 years old, I really started getting into drugs heavy. I ended up homeless. I went to prison 3 times.
For drugs?
Yes, for drugs, for assault 2, robbery. I was real into drugs, so mainly anything that I did was drug-driven.
Mm-hmm.
I was an addict in every sense of the word. So my 3rd time in prison, I was looking at 4 years. In 2012, and I decided to turn my life around. I read a lot of books. In 2016, I got released. I got married. I became a plumber, and I've been off parole for the first time in 15 years.
What do you want to tell me about the tenancy?
So I moved in with them. I got separated from my wife. Sadly, that didn't work out. When I used to live with my wife, that night when I sleptwalked on him, well, 2 nights prior to that, this guy I had worked with had told me, hey, have you told him you yell in your sleep? I got PTSD. So the only way I could break it down, the reason I walked into their room is when I lived with my wife, that night I did get drunk. I was going through a divorce. I'm not a big drinker, but I would be occasionally drinking, loosen up, kind of like, because I'd work 12-hour days. I'd come home 7 to 7, I'd get off, and I just was try to stay out of their way. I wanted to not, it was a weird situation as I moved in with them because they're a couple, but yet they're like wanting to have threesomes and stuff. He's meeting with girls when she's out of town, taking pictures with her, not telling me not to tell her, and it's just like, it was an awkward situation for me, and because of where I have come from, I don't want the negativity in my life, so I would come home, I'd go to my room, but it's like if I was in their kitchen, I felt awkward, I couldn't even cook food. It just, so because of that element of the threesomes and the awkwardness, I would always try to address him. You know?
How many times did they ask you? You keep mentioning this threesome.
Well, he asked me when I first moved in around March. He asked me to leave in June. He said, could you leave in June?
No, we're talking about the threesomes.
That's what I'm saying. No, that's what I mean. That was way ahead of time. He said, could you leave in June? Whitney's going to have a friend over.
They never ask you?
Directly, no.
So they just came up to you and say, hey! We about to have a threesome.
Well, basically,
We about to have a threesome tonight.
Well, more Steven than
We
Whitney.
just feel like telling you.
Yeah. Yeah, it was more Steven than Whitney. Steven was alone with me in the kitchen when he asked that. He said, well, could you make some time in June to not be here? You know, Whitney's got a friend coming over. I was like, what? He said, well, I can't be, well, we're going to have a threesome.
Did you say, well, it's the only time you all engage in intimacy or sex is when I'm gone?
No, that's none of my business. That makes it more awkward.
But none of it was any of your business.
No, absolutely
what
not.
What they do in their bedroom.
Yeah.
None of it is.
He shouldn't have asked me to leave. I don't know why. It just made it awkward. Yeah.
I don't believe he did. Did you?
I said we're gonna have a friend over. If you know, if you could leave, we're gonna have.
Why did you want him to leave?
I'm sorry.
You gotta be sticking up for you. Why do you want the man to leave? Why did you want the man to leave? You can't do what you want in your own bedroom or in your own house?
We just wanted some privacy, and you know,
Okay.
that was it.
Good
So,
enough. All right. So, they don't mind you hearing their one-on-one sex, but you gotta leave when they have their two-on-one sex. You understand now?
Yeah, I understand. It's clear.
Because I was confused.
Yeah.
They have one-on-one.
I was confused
What's
too.
the problem? If you're in the confines of your bedroom.
Yeah.
But he says when they got their people over. What else you want to tell me about the tendency?
So-
and then we're going to get to what they're suing about.
So, I mean, there came a point where I just started becoming very uncomfortable at that place. So I wanted to find somewhere else. So on May 5th, I wanted to move somewhere closer to my
You
brother.
wasn't sleepwalking. It just dawned on me. That you sleepwalk. Yeah, it was sleepwalk. He was checking up. Come in. I was here to see if y'all got 2 or 3 in there. Let me just think. This might be the night. I said, well, this might be my night. Then you hopped up. Well, no! This is not for you. Okay.
I'd like to comment on that, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Jimmy was very open about his divorce with his wife, mostly with Steven. So Steven was just being honest with him. They were just
being guys, just talking.
nothing ever happened, obviously.
He's just talking stuff.
We're just talking small.
That's a guy thing. I wasn't involved in that.
Tell me about the rent and cleaning fee you're suing him for.
So Jimmy told Steven around May, the beginning of May, that he was going to go to Arizona to visit his brother. Jimmy left, and him and Steven kind of had a verbal agreement. You know, let me know what your plan is. Let me know if you're coming back for June. It was only a 6-month lease, so he had June and July after May.
Come on, just give that to the...
Yeah, if you'd like to, you could follow along.
Let's see it, please.
Steven texted Jimmy saying, hey, you know, what's your plan for June rent? Jimmy responded with, who is this? You know, we live together. How do you not know who it is? He wasn't going out of his way to let us know. You know, it's the last day of the month.
So what happened?
So June 3rd, I texted Jimmy, where you at? You have rent. Jimmy never responded to me, ignored me. I got a bad gut feeling, so I changed the locks. On June 7th, Jimmy showed up at the house, and the door was locked, obviously. Texted Steven and said, hey, I need you to be home. I need to get my stuff.
I work 60-hour work week.
What happened to his things? He's suing for his personal.
He came, he got his stuff.
How'd he get in?
I let him in.
He let him in. He left this stuff there willingly. His bed frame that he claims that we owe him for, we found by the dumpster outside. The entertainment center that he claims was $150 was definitely not. We have copies of these. And the photo that he claims was $1,800 was left mounted on his wall.
And that was after he tried to give it to me.
The problem you have is that was an illegal eviction. Let me hear from you, sir.
May 5th came around, and I just needed to go. So I gave him a 30-day. Well, to me, that was almost 30 days. I figured everything.
What date?
May 5th. So May 5th, I said, hey, I'm going to leave. I'll be back early June to reclaim the rest.
Verbal?
Verbal, because everything with us had been verbal. When she'd printed this.
That's not true. Some things have been 4 pages.
May I say something?
John
on that note?
Hancock's right on there.
So their apartment that they were never allowed, that contract, they printed off on the internet when she told me she did. Well, I called the manager. They were never allowed to lease their apartment. because they never talked to the manager. They would have had to have a lease change, which I asked them at the beginning, and she said, no, we've already talked to him. But I called the manager, and she said that nobody can live at those apartments unless they're on the lease. May 5th, I told them I was leaving. I'd be back early June. Can we prorate June? Okay, my rent is $750 a month. I came back on June 6th. When I got there, the locks were changed. So then I had to wait 4 hours for him to show up. When he did show up, he started talking about, I'm going to call the cops. You're not going to, because he didn't. I said, I'm not paying $500. I'll pay you $200-300 maybe for up till June 6th, but I'm not paying $500 out of $750 for a month I'm not even here. And he wasn't happy. They started threatening to call the cops. He started saying that, he started getting really hostile. Daniel here could hear him from down the street, as well as his fiance getting very hostile. At that point, I didn't want nothing to do with any trouble.
When do you all say he removed all his things? What date?
6/7, I believe, sir.
I believe it was the 7th.
June 7th?
Yes.
7th.
But yet you changed the locks on June 3rd.
Well,
4th, I believe, actually. But
That was
yes.
prior to June 7th.
Yeah.
so he
We just never
didn't-
got any. Go ahead.
Go
He had
ahead.
no verbal response if he was coming home. I personally felt uncomfortable with a man in my house that never talked to me, wanted nothing to do with me. And if he was
Then you
ignoring-
would get uncomfortable if he talked too much to you
Yeah.
and wanted too much to
Yep.
do with you.
Yep.
Come on, ma'am. The question is that changing of the locks prior to the time he moved his things out, he was still a tenant at that point. And you can only change the locks of a tenant with a judge's order. You go to court for the eviction if the person doesn't move at the time that they say they were going to move, and judge says yes or no. You take that judgment, and then you can change the locks. But you can't resort to legal self-help. However, sir, they say you got all your personal property
Yes, sir.
They have pictures of the personal property I had to leave behind.
And we
that
contacted.
you left behind. Let's see it.
I can tell you
You got to
about...
stand up
Thank you, Your Honor.
and state your name.
I'm Daniel Ross.
And let me see that property you have, pictures of it. Yes.
We're good friends. We call each other brothers. I bring him to this environment where this gentleman, this is my only interaction with this guy ever. He's hot from the beginning, chest out, yelling. He's told Jimmy that he has a gun already. Jimmy tells me this already. He tells Jimmy that he knows police officers, and now he's threatening to call the cops. Like, are you going to call the cops, or are you going to call a cop? You know what I mean? Like, he's trying to intimidate us. As soon as we're there, our only goal,
I
the
never
entire
spoke to
time,
you.
the entire time,
I never spoke to you.
I could hear you from the street when I'm loading the trailer, yelling. My wife could hear you my fiance could hear you from the street.
Loading what trailer?
We got a U-Haul trailer that we're loading
When?
all of Jimmy's stuff in.
When?
On June 6th, I wanted to go home.
Okay, so you had all your things as of June 6th.
I was trying to get my stuff.
Oh, you had a trailer. You remember
Yeah.
your buddy
And
just
we were
said
wait-
you
and
had
we-
a trailer.
and we're
you
waiting
can fit all
since-
your things in a trailer?
And we were waiting since noon
That's
to
what
do
people
it.
move with. They move with trailers. And that's what you
But
had.
what I'm saying is-
so you can get all your things like he said you did.
He was-
As your witness jumped up to say, y'all had a trailer.
Yeah.
And you were moving
In a hostile
in that
environment.
trailer. And they said you did. The problem you all have, it was an illegal eviction. I can't enforce your judgment because of that. Your claim is dismissed, and so is yours. I believe that you did, or you should have, gotten all your things the day your witness jumped up and said that, yeah, we had a trailer. Have a good day. Both your claims are dismissed.
Don't trust them. They will try to get you over. All they care about is money, and they like to have weird threesomes and orgies.
Then come lie in court about it.
This is the guy that was in prison.
Oh, I was
good
in
one.
prison. Oh my God.
Let's make it
I
happen.
just wanted Jimmy to be held responsible for his actions. I felt like we were really nice, and he just took advantage of us.